Hello and welcome to All in Wellness. Today we have a special guest with us, Adam Yannotta. He is a real estate investor, an author, an educator, and an entrepreneur. Whether you're looking to enhance your physical health, nurture your mental resilience, or simply find a moment of peace in your day, you're in the right place. Let's embark on this journey together, embracing all the possibilities that wellness has to offer. Adam is a seasoned finance professional that's thriving in real estate, and he is a former teacher operating in the New York metropolitan area. He graduated with a degree in finance, and Adam entered the high-pressure world of Wall Street, where he learned invaluable lessons in managing money and thriving in challenging environments. His success in finance allowed him to retire before the age of 40 and venture into real estate and other businesses. Adam's unique journey has led him to become a dedicated teacher where he saw the flaws in education, and he's worked diligently to improve it. He organized health programs and introduced various programs in sports medicine, nutrition, anatomy and exercise physiology, and inspiring countless students to pursue careers in the health field. As an educator, he has excelled, earning advanced degrees in education and leadership. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great, Amanda. Thank you for the introduction. You know, when I hear the introduction, I like revisit that part of my life. And you know, one of my biggest accomplishments was I actually taught in the same high school that I went to. So it was a high school where I thought I failed it because I had so much potential. But in the New York City school, in the New York City education system, it's a little messy. And so I was taking chemistry and physics and earth science and a lot of these subjects and trig and calculus, a lot of these subjects that sound great on paper. However, they do nothing for us. So I was always mad because when I was from the sixth grade to like freshman year, I was a 99 student, and then it kind of like fell apart and I just like gave up. You know, luckily I played sports, and that helped me because when I went to work on Wall Street, I wound up gaining so much knowledge, so much information. And then I started creating my own business on the side. And then I was like, wow, you know what? Maybe I could coach. And then from coaching, I wound up being pulled back in education. And I couldn't believe it. The school I never thought I would enter ever again. There I was working in that same school. So the universe works in these magical ways. So now I have the opportunity to correct things that were out of whack, I thought. So my first year, I created a sports medicine program with a good friend of mine. He actually was a big part of it. He was an ex-UFC fighter. He's in my book, and what a great story he has. To make a long story short, we wound up creating a sports medicine program. It moonlighted as like an anatomy and physiology program, and it helped countless students go to nursing school, or they became ultrasound techs, or physical therapists, or chiropractors, and I couldn't believe it. So that alone was my greatest accomplishment.
That is so touching, and I cannot imagine how many students you have helped, and maybe they wouldn't have excelled had it not been for you. And I bet you feel that you were called to do maybe God's work and just helping so many students that could excel at a higher level.
Yeah, it is God's work, similar to the work you do. When somebody comes into one of your places and they look 20 years younger because of you, I mean, that's God's work. That's fulfilling. So I've always chased money. It's not to say I don't chase money now. I think money plays a very important role in how we navigate this reality, because it's very difficult to navigate this reality if we're worrying about our day-to-day finances. Any kind of financial independence you could create for yourself, that gives you an energetic vibration that could almost be unmatched. So most people hate the 3D. They hate working. They hate doing this. However, if they could somehow master this reality in a financial perspective, and there's ways to do it, you could do it by finding a fulfilling career. You know, I know a hairstylist who she's booked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. She's always booked. You would say, oh, she's a hairstylist. Great. You know, but that girl is a god. That girl makes everyone look beautiful all the time. And that's like a fulfilling career if you think about it.
Almost healing. She's a healer in a way. People feel so much better, from the inside out, and just your hair defines you so much. And I'm sure she's really helps, even though she's talented, she probably helps so many people just feeling better about themselves, right?
Oh, it's just like what you do. When you have people coming to you, what do they say?
It's amazing. They say, we can tell you really care. Number one, we love to take the time and just the consultation and really understanding their needs and concerns and goals. And then it's really educating from there. And then they make a decision based on their goals long term. What are their priorities? What do they want to accomplish? And then we can help them, over a 2-year time span, which is very fun. It's very enjoyable. And I just get so much more out of giving than receiving when you're helping someone with that journey.
It's a lucrative job too. So not only are you mastering the 3D by bringing in money, you're also have your foot in what I would refer to as the 5D. Basically, the more spiritual aspects of this reality that we can't see. And I think that's in my book, I talk about true happiness. And I'm not here I don't know what true happiness is. For everybody, it would be different. For me anyway, true happiness is a sense of fulfillment. Like, I couldn't believe I was a teacher again. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? I didn't even know how I got there. It was like I walked through a warp zone. So I was like, all of a sudden I'm a teacher again. I was like, I failed in this school. I used to get in a lot of trouble all over the place, on the streets everywhere. And here I am in the school. And surprisingly enough, I became a very good teacher there. One of the most highly effective teachers out there. And I worked in this school. I don't know how the schools are in Minnesota, but in New York City, there's schools that we have thousands and thousands of kids. I worked in the largest high school in New York City, one of the largest in New York State, one of the largest in the country. Wow. We had something like 4,300 students, which that's a lot daily.
That's a lot. I mean, we graduated with a class of 1,000, over 1,000. I thought that was large.
That's actually a lot. But you graduated, so your senior year was 1,000?
Correct.
So, how many in the whole entire? How many years in the whole? How many students did you have in the high school altogether?
Well, 4,300.
Oh, so that school. That's a very big school. Mm-hmm. That's a large school. But it's amazing because God could put you in certain places where you could help out the most amount of people. So I think somewhere along the line, I have a higher aspect of me that is a lot better than I am. Mm-hmm. As far as knowing what I want. And that's what this is all about. We have this higher aspect, this higher order thinking. We'll call it the higher self. It's referred by Socrates and the ancient philosophers as our higher self. The higher self sits on the mountaintop, knows exactly what you want and exactly what you need, and it knows where you should go. Now we, in this physical reality, we're like in the woods, bumping into this tree, bumping into that tree. We don't know where to go. But the higher self knows exactly what's good for us. And every single person is evolving towards their greatest life. The only thing that seems to prevent it is worrying about evolving towards your greatest life. So my book really, fear, exactly. And you talk about this in one of your podcasts. What about fear?
Well, I think number one, fear can freeze us. I mean, it can stop us in our tracks, right? And it's just not allowing fear to take over. And you have to be so cognizant and realizing, I mean, that's really what evil wants, right? Us to have fear. And I think it's each one of us has our gifts. We're blessed. We're all blessed with those gifts. And it's finding the passion because it's there. And I think it takes listening to the universe and also just letting God show you what you're called to do. And I think it is rare, but it's for everyone. It's just not everyone has found it, right? And I think it's so important to find that passion because we all have it within us. I think we all have our gifts.
And there's one more thing now, if you mind me mentioning it, your father passed away when you were young. Now, some people, they fall apart. Other people, they're able to take the lessons. They're able to learn. And they're able to see this and use it as a certain motivation, inner strength and inner power.
That's exactly what I called it. That's what my dad, really has been part of my vision of creating the med spa that I have today. And it's his inner strength, his quiet inner strength that has propelled me to be at the level I am. And it's really about helping others. It's definitely doing what I am blessed doing every day, each and every day. And just, I learned so many lessons, right? And I never took that road of poor me, this is happening to me. I actually saw it as everything that's happened to me is a lesson. There's always a lesson and there's always a positive. even though it was tumultuous, at that time. Did a lot of healing, a lot of therapy. Some of the milestones were hard, but now he's in a better place, which I know we will all be there someday. And it's just really important to see that, that was his time and not to be in fear or just have the worry or, unfortunate circumstances and being depressed or, just looking at it as what can I do from all of the things that he taught me, and just he was a very good leader and teacher to me. So there are positives there. So I want to talk more about the book that you have. And the book is called The 7 Secrets of Greatness and How to Discover Your Purpose, Find Your Power, and Achieve the Impossible. Let's hear more about that.
All throughout time, whether you're talking about Alexander the Great or the Golden Age of Greece, and before that, whether you're talking about the Roman Empire and the philosophers in between, all the way up to the Renaissance, all the way up to the Enlightenment, to today's day and age, there are certain principles that repeat over and over. And one of those principles you just said, the fact that circumstances don't matter. It's your reaction to them that matters. And that's when your father died. You did not fall apart. You discovered the lessons. You found the inner power. You realize that things happen for a reason. You don't know what that reason is, but it plays out down the road. So, for example, when I was younger, I had anxiety and I would have panic attacks. I did not know what they were. I had no idea what they were. I was like, these are awful. These are god awful. While I was having them, I have no idea. It was almost like I was attacked by demons. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, why would I have this? It was terrible. I was always like shaking like that. I'm like, what is
Out
that?
of body.
Oh, it was terrible. Like, I couldn't breathe. And many people suffer from it. Then I became a school teacher. And so many kids were like, Mr. Yannotta, I just have so much anxiety. What could I do? What could I do? And I was able to walk kids through that. And I said to myself, holy crap. Could I have went through that just to maybe perhaps help these kids now? And then I started to see the genius in this reality. So I'm like, wow, this is how this reality works. You may have a bad thing happen, and I'll get into the secrets chronologically. The universe, secret number 3 is that the universe is always conspiring in our favor. And what that means is a blessing, a nightmare, a major nightmare in your life, whether it's a breakup, whether you lose a job, whether it's somebody dying. They turn out to be blessings later on. So your worst nightmare seems to become a greater blessing if you give it time. And now we're starting to understand how this reality operates. This reality, the math could prove it, is always evolving towards greatness. It's always evolving towards perfection. So mathematically, if we're talking about quantum physics, there are periods of disorder. They call it entropy. And it could be measured for a short amount of times. However, that entropy, that disorder, always evolves to new forms of order. And that just means that this reality is learning. And we live in some type of beautiful, wonderful, magical simulation. A simulation where your son could have the same mannerisms as his dad. And it could say, wow, God does exist because that's just the most beautiful thing ever. And my father passed away. And my son has the same mannerisms. And I see the same thing. So as you're telling me this, and it's like, wow, this reality is so beautiful. And the math only proves perfection. Like if I was going to explain to you certain things like the mass of the hydrogen atom, or if I was going to explain to you other formulas, you'll realize that if any of those numbers were off, like 10 to the negative 150th power, we wouldn't have a universe. So they're not telling us, and we don't know this, but this universe is perfect. All our lives are perfect. Everything is perfect. And once you get into that vibration, you wind up seeing that things become perfect. You start being led by what's called synchronicities. Synchronicities are these crazy coincidences. Some people think a crazy coincidence is somebody catching a touchdown pass with 1 second left. They call that a miracle. However, the sun and the moon are the same size in the sky. Like that's mathematically impossible. So not to jump all over the place, but we live in a perfect simulation and we have to make up all this evil. We have to we have to, look at our cell phones and see all this evil, and all the evil is pushed on us just to show us that it's not perfect. But this reality is perfect.
Well,
And
and life is 10% of what happens to us, but 90% of how we react to it, right?
that's secret number two. And a big part of your life seems to be secret number two. Circumstances in life don't matter. It's our state of being. But my secret number one in this book is that miracles are the norm in life. They're not the rare chance occurrence. People think miracles are rare. However, for us to be here right now speaking to each other, there'd have to be thousands and thousands of miracles. I had to take this action and take that action, and you would have had to take actions. And if we would put that math together, we would find out that statistically, that's a miracle. So miracles, they seem to be the norm in this reality. The universe is looking for beautiful stories, people who rise up in the face of failure, people who rise up during adversity. It's like the universe craves that almost, the hero's journey. The most unlikely of people becoming the most likely of people to succeed and to show others the way.
I've actually had 3 miracles in my life already. So, and it's definitely shaping me to be stronger, right? And just showing, there's a lesson, and I just trust the Lord. The first miracle I had was my son I was pregnant with, and his dad, and he had kind of a fluke thing happen to him, West Nile encephalitis, you've probably heard of, from a mosquito, and almost didn't make it. I mean, he was in ICU, and I was told he's going to die, and I didn't doubt the Lord, and I just shook my head, no, it's not his time. And 9 days later, miraculously, he is here today, but he really couldn't walk. He didn't even know where he was. I mean, he was very young, in his late 20s. And sure enough, when my son was born, he's healthy. He's there. He was part of all of the things with the newborn. But my second miracle, I had a routine surgery that went bad. And I've never been sick really, other than having my tonsils out with that surgery. But I ended up septic. I had 107-degree fever and
Oh my goodness.
was taken by ambulance. And I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm here.
How long ago was that?
That was in 2017.
So 2017 you had that. And how did your life change from that experience?
Well, definitely, I took a few steps back and I looked up and I said, God, what are you trying to show me here? And it's really, I'm here, I'm listening, but it definitely was slow down, and just put everything in perspective. And what it really taught me was nothing else really matters. All the little things don't matter. Being, like you said, universe is perfect, but we don't have to judge ourselves in a way of having high expectations is good. But there's just so many other things that can get in the way and distract us. And that's when fear comes into play. I feel like that really, fear was removed from my life. At that point, nothing else really mattered. And so it really has instilled to really look at what is my life purpose and not let other things get in the way.
That story is amazing, because when you go through that, and I went through something similar, not a 107 fever, I was almost paralyzed from the waist down. I had a back surgery, and the back surgery, I had to get it repaired. So I got it repaired and went for surgery. And a few days later, I broke up a fight. I was a dean in that same high school. And I feel like the universe has different plans for us. And sometimes it's sicknesses or injuries that pull you out of that one path and put you on another. Because one day I was working in the school, and I broke up a fight a few days after my surgery. And I couldn't walk for 6 months after that. I needed emergency surgery, another surgery after that. And it was a disaster. And I said, what the hell could I learn from? And you know what year that was? 2016 going into 2017. So there's something strange happened at that time, not just for you and me.
Interesting.
For many people, there seemed to be this awakening of some sort. I looked for the lessons like you did, because you got to look for the lessons.
You do.
In the adversity. And I found the lessons, and I found certain people, and I found the secrets of this book. And I wound up writing this book with somebody who, I don't know how you feel about channeling. When I go on podcasts, I talk about channeling. Channeling is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. I am not the type of person to get into channeling or anything of that nature. However, this individual was able to kind of speak many of the things I've been through, many of my experiences, and your experiences too. He was able to speak it in a way that just hit me so differently. So I learned to respect it. Then I learned to find out that Socrates, he was a channeler. He channeled a separate being altogether. he referred to as his daemon. Not to be confused with demon. Daemon in Greek is higher self. The Bible was channeled messages by what people perceive to be God. All throughout history, the philosophers, even Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar and all of them, everyone, they were able to tap into this field. Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Nikola Tesla, they were able to tap into this field. My book shows you how to tap into this field, the field of channeling. Channeling is a brainwave state. It's like getting in the zone if you play sports. You get in the zone, you're in that brainwave state, and you connect to something else. It's almost like, ever see like those religious pictures or the stained glass? They have that, circular, you would call it, not the halo, but that circular globe around the head. That is, to me, people's ability to bypass the reptilian brain and go into higher forms of thinking, and that's where the greatness is at. At that higher form of thinking, you're bringing in messages and information and ideas that can not only help you change your life, but could really help change the world. So my book is all about sitting back like you did, assessing, taking a step back, thinking what's important, being quiet, getting into a quiet space, and then tapping into those higher fields. In those higher fields is your purpose. It's your passion is in there. You're allowed to bypass the matrix by going into that higher order thinking. You bypass the programming. Now, the reptilian brain is very interesting. It's the first part of the brain that receives messages. You could be controlled just by them controlling and programming that brain. In our reality, this matrix is basically the control of your reptilian brain. Your pleasure senses, your prime instincts. And if anyone has an addiction or anything like that, it filters through the reptilian brain first. So you have to bypass the reptilian brain to get over addiction, to get over all this. So my book is just basically a roadmap written with the top extraterrestrial channeler in the world. Sounds crazy. I thought it was crazy too. That's until he told me a few things that, one of my best friends growing up, we had the greatest childhood. We did everything together. We learned so much from each other. I learned so much from this kid. We challenged each other. We played sports with each other. He would wind up going to West Point. I would wind up going to community college because I was in and out of trouble and everything. And I knew I was going to work on Wall Street. Anyway, he goes overseas to fight in Iraq and Kosovo. He comes back a war hero. He winds up getting a job at the Florida Panthers. He doesn't know anything about hockey. So, it's actually funny because he was like, I don't know anything about hockey. I'm going to South Florida. I don't know. Anyway, he becomes the president and CEO of the Florida Panthers. He still knows nothing about hockey. His team wasn't that great at the time. But the channeler told me, Adam, they're going to win more than you could ever imagine. And he's like, you just got to tell him this. I'm like, I'm not telling him this. He's like, they're going to win more than you could ever imagine. I said, all right, if that happens, then I'll believe in channeling 100%. I was like at 75%, maybe 85%, but I'm still testing it. Like, is this true? Is this true? Mm-hmm. The freaking kid, my friend, turns around the whole entire program. They not only get into the Stanley Cup, they pulled off one of the biggest miracles in hockey, beating the best team of all time in the regular season and coming back from a big deficit to beat them. And then they just won the Stanley Cup championship last year. And I think, from what he says, they're going to be there again.
You can't get more inspirational than that. That's just wild. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was wild. But this guy, this channeler, this ET channeler, hey, listen, I don't know, maybe he's channeling a demon. I can't prove it. Maybe he's channeling Satan. Maybe he's channeling, whatever he's channeling some of the most beautiful information. And he's not a prophet. So he's not trying to, be like a fortune teller. But he gave me that. And he doesn't work with anybody. So for him to work with me on this project, on this book, is interesting. So not only that, I also had another student of mine while I was in high school, that same high school I went to. Oh, this kid was just the nicest kid. He was just a grateful kid. I just wanted the kid to get into college, so I didn't help him that much. However, I brought him to my mother-in-law so he could get SAT tutoring. And what I would do is I would look out for the athletes when I was a teacher. I make sure they didn't get into fights. When athletes fight, you got to stop it. They'll lose their scholarship. They could get in trouble. And I always took care of these guys behind the scenes. I work with their teachers. Well, one of these kids, while I'm writing my book. He winds up, going to Rutgers. Rutgers, he has like a decent career. His career's over. To make then he tries out for the Baltimore Ravens. He doesn't make it. He doesn't get drafted. Doesn't make it. So he goes on in football. There's this practice squad. Basically, you're a test dummy. So he becomes a test dummy for the Baltimore Ravens. The only way this kid would be able to see the field is if like 5 running backs get hurt. Sure enough, 5 running backs get hurt. This kid sees the field, and he becomes one of the best running backs in the NFL. And as my book's coming out, this kid's leading the league in touchdowns. And his name is Gus Edwards. And I'm like, geez, what the hell is that? That's amazing. And all throughout my life, the universe has put me in front of certain people. And they were the best athletes. They were the best football players, the best baseball players. They were professional athletes, business executives, billionaires. And I've been put in proximity to these people. Some of them were my best friends. Some of them I coached. Some of them I grew up with. And it's just, I had this amazing, even the book, The Secret, it was written by finding great people and saying, all right, tell me a story. However, I understand greatness from as you're a kid to as you become adult. And not many people have that kind of, I'm not going to call it expertise, but had that opportunity. For some reason, the universe gave me that opportunity. Now, the only person who understands this concept of how to be great from as you're a kid to adult is this guy, Bashar. Bashar is, Darryl Anka is his name. Bashar is the channeler. He channels a separate entity he calls Bashar. As crazy as it sounds, the information this guy knows is on a level that, I couldn't believe it. Because how would he know? He's not a healer. He's a teacher of greatness. And so I was able to take his material, work with them, and to try and channel his information into the best information that we could use that could help us. Help us with mindset, help us navigate this reality. But you have that. You have the ability to turn pain into lessons. And that's an amazing thing. And I love to see people who do podcasts who would just awaken souls to that level. Because you're going to help so many people. Am I right?
I hope so. I hope it's many people, and it's on such a different level. It's a great way to describe it. It's just, you're in a whole different mindset. Life is just so much easier, right? When you look at it from a different perspective. And like you said, just really assessing and not being affected by whatever circumstance. There's always going to be a positive. There's always going to be a lesson. We just excel at such a higher level, personally and professionally. We can as well.
And that is in what you just said. The person thinking about things from a different perspective. That could be the difference. For example, when people think differently, when people meditate. Do you meditate at all?
I meditate every day. I start my day meditating. I have to.
Meditating is very interesting. Again, it's a way for you to bypass the pathways of the reptilian brain and to create new neuron pathways or whatever. And I noticed that when I started to meditate, my food preference changed. My music preference changed. I changed. I started to look at my problems as if I was a different person. I was like, damn, what the hell is this about? And then things that were, blocks for me turned out to be catapults for me. And I was able to catapult from one thing to another because I was a different person. I'm like, oh my God.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, is right. How long do you meditate for?
10 minutes at the minimum.
That's good.
I really make sure to, don't allow my phone to interject, because once everything starts, right, there's not really any turning back. And it's just so important. I even do it 10 minutes throughout my day, midday, because I've just found my cortisol and stress levels can be so much lower, and I don't have the rise and fall anymore when I take that 10 minutes and just reset and just really shift gears, because there's always a lot of overstimulation each and every day. But like you said, it's so amazing. I'll even have different music that's more meditative, and it's just a calming environment. I do eat very differently as well. Without the meditation, the game is just so different. And I just don't find that you're enjoying life as much. You're just going through the motions.
a different game. That's actually interesting you say that. You're playing on a different field. You're playing on a different game. You're thinking differently. Perhaps you're even bringing in the higher aspects of ourselves through meditation. And in the meditative state, that's where many of our ideas, when you have a meditative state, and then you, instead of focusing on nothing, you actually focus on ideas and inspirations. That's where people could bring forth an idea that could really, really, really change the world. Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, as I said before, they believed that there was an unseen force at play. And for them to pick up on that unseen force, they would just have to be quiet, and they would have to listen, and the ideas would come, the answers would come. So it's amazing. So my book is about higher aspects of thinking, using the top channeler in the world, combining it with my life experiences, which are the top professional athletes and business executives and some billionaires, and putting it all together and having one of the better books that we're giving all the profits away. We want no money from this at all. It's heavily reduced, but it's, if I don't care if one person reads it or a million people read it, it's, if I die, my kids, they have a blueprint how to navigate this reality from like the way you did. You had that inner power, your ability to not react to circumstances. When your husband almost died, you stayed strong. When your father died, you stayed strong. That ability, many people don't seem to have that. So this book shows you maybe how to navigate around those situations, how to look for those lessons, like you said, which is amazing that you know this, because you only the fact that you know this is actually, how do you know this? Do you just know this, or did you learn this?
What's interesting is I recently had a third miracle just this past August. My mother unfortunately suffered a brain aneurysm, and I became the strong leader in my family. And then I stopped for a moment and I said, have I always been strong? I don't think I've always had this my whole life. And then I realized when I was 9, same thing. I was there for my aunts, I was there for my grandmother, and I was just resilient and just strong. I've always really had the inner strength, but have I exercised it? And then when that happened with my mom, I did that same sequence. I really stepped back. I was very silent. I didn't break down. I just trusted it. I knew it wasn't her time. She's only 71 at the time. And I just knew she's going to come out of this. And I stayed very positive. And I became really the strong leader, like I mentioned. My family was even impressed. My aunts and uncles saw that, and they're like, wow, this is just impressive. And I just said, we've got to be here for her. She's in a coma. We got to get her through this. And she's one of God's warriors, and her time is not now to leave this earth. So I just had that mindset. And each and every day I was there with her for many hours a day at the hospital. And she just said to me a couple of weeks ago, how spoiled she was to have me there every day. But I don't know if we aren't there for them. We just had to be strong as a family as well. But that's how I know. I mean, after having 3 miracles, how I looked at that was, what is God going to show us? He's going to show us something here. And he sure did. 90% of people wouldn't have even made it through. She's 80% back to where she was before the aneurysm. So that just shows you right there. Statistically, she shouldn't be here, but she is. And just trusting, that's a whole different mindset. Not everybody can accomplish that.
The fact that you have these belief systems, I believe, affect your reality in that way, where most people with the victim mentality, they might actually create for them in their reality a different kind of outcome. But you have that inner strength, so everywhere you're going, you're creating these miracles now because you have that inner strength and that inner knowing, and that seems to be a cheat code in this reality. And you have many of these cheat codes. So it's amazing that I'm even put in front of you, because who better than you than to have lived this? And my 7th secret is the idea that you have to follow your passion. And there's 5 steps to following your passion. But let me I'll rewind a little back, because you follow your passion more than anything. Not only do you make people look beautiful every single day, or you do so much. As far as now, you're doing these podcasts. So you're doing podcasts. You're bringing your knowledge in. You're experiencing miracles. You understand the strength from your point of view of how to overcome adversity, overcome trauma. And there's no better teacher like you. It's like God put you in this podcast role, for a reason. And there needs to be more people like you in this role, which is beautiful, I think.
And I'm just listening to my calling. I mean, I think it was definitely 5 years ago I felt called to speak more. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago to speak, absolutely not, right? But I just kept hearing and feeling this nudge from God. It's like, nope, you need to tell your story, you need to share a little bit more. And even just since 5 years ago, how many experiences have come into my life, good and bad, but I never look at anything as a failure.
We're all having these individual experiences that for some reason we have them. They seem to make no sense. But again, all the philosophers before us, they know that there are no mistakes in this reality. There are no accidents. Everything is purposeful. And it's not only purposeful, it's so perfect that if you remain in the vibration that it's going to be perfect, you'll eventually see that it does become perfect. For example, when I was paralyzed from the waist down, I couldn't walk. I actually had a real estate business. I had this business. I had that business. I had money over here, money over there. I had so much. However, I didn't have to go to my day-to-day job, which allowed me to focus on real estate. I was able to restructure my real estate in a way where I wouldn't have to work, ever again, like that, as far as work is concerned. Not that I want to knock on wood. I don't want to say that.
It's amazing though, right? Because so many people, it's not even 9 to 5. We work 12-hour days or 15-hour days as an entrepreneur. And so for you to have success, I think you can help so many people with that vision that are out there right now that are struggling, and they're just tired. Maybe they're just tired
But when
of
you follow your passion like you do, it's not work. Am I right or wrong?
Right. It's not work. I don't feel like I'm working every day. I just love what I do. So it doesn't feel like work, right? And it's enjoying what you're doing and having that passion. Not all of us are blessed at the moment, but it is there. We just have to find it.
So in my book, it shows you how to discover your passion. There are steps for you to do it. Discovering your passion is the most rewarding thing we could do to ourselves. Not even finding it. Once you find it, it's great. But the path to discovering it is very interesting because you open up this pathway to this higher power. And people may think this is crazy, and this is, however, every single generation before the last 200 years, they believed in this, wholeheartedly. The idea that there is unseen forces at play. So when you make the attempt to discover what your passion is, when you just take a step back and open up that pathway, all of a sudden, weird things happen. You get a phone call over here. All of a sudden, a book shows up over there. You read the book. It gives you information. It leads you to one book, to the other book, to one podcast, to this person, to that person. And all of a sudden, you not only discover your passion, you create something that is just magical. And that happens when people make the attempt that I want to follow my passion. Now, the one thing about following their passion is a lot of people, they sometimes quit their day job to follow their passion. They run out of money, and their passion turns out to be they wind up quitting, cursing God and cursing and going back to their 9 to 5. So my thing in my book is there is a way for your passion. First, you find yourself some kind of, I stole this from somebody. You find a financial, you find yourself a job where you could pass go and collect 200. That means find a job that does not take a lot of your time, a lot of your responsibility. If it's too much responsibility and too much time, you can't create on the side.
Right.
So find a job where you could, however you can, come home from that job and have enough energy to create your passion and turn that passion, alchemize it into money. And there's ways to do that. We could talk about that down the road. But let me just say the 7 secrets real fast. So the first secret is miracles are the norm. Look, you're a walking miracle. You're having all these miracles. And you're having these miracles at the time when you created your podcast. Do you think that's by accident?
Absolutely
That's
not.
purpose. So that you could show everybody that this reality is the miracles. And here's the math that proves it. We have this repeating geometrical code. It's called the Fibonacci sequence. It's found every day through the human body, whether it's the spiral galaxy, the spiral seashell, or if you're looking at the face of a sunflower, there's this repeating geometrical pattern. It's the most efficient pattern. It's a simple pattern. And the way you navigate this reality, although this reality is crazy complex, the way you navigate it is simple. And so number one, believing that miracles are the norm is how you start seeing the miracles. And secret number 2, circumstances in life don't matter. It's our state of being that matters. Your state of being is affected by beliefs and many other things. I have it in my book. We won't get into that, but your reactions to things determines your state of being. So if you don't react, or you react positively, you'll always get a positive effect, no matter how bad the thing is. Mm-hmm. Secret number 3 is the universe is always conspiring in our favor. You had something happen to you, some trauma. In 2017, you had this happen. 2018, you had this happen. However, here you are right now, being able to share that wonderful information with an audience. And I think that's magical. I think that's beautiful. And I think that's so purposeful, the universe conspiring, sometimes giving us our worst nightmares that sprout up to become our greatest blessings. All throughout my life, I've noticed that. That took me 40 years to discover that one. But the universe is always, we don't know, we're stuck in traffic, we're cursing. However, we don't know that if we weren't in traffic, we would have gotten to an accident ourselves down the road.
Exactly.
Universe is always protecting us. It's always giving us what we need, not what we want, what we need. You know, I had a friend of mine in the late 90s. He was making close to $1 million a year, which right now would be like making $100 million a year, you know, as far as money's worth. Now, this kid, we almost died. I was young at the time, so I knew I was going to go work for him on Wall Street. And at that time, he was spending money like crazy. We were in Atlantic City. We were just driving 120 miles an hour on the expressway. We were just living a crazy life in the Benz and riding on motorcycles and a real we almost died. Every time we hung out, we almost died. However, the stock market got crushed, and he was young. So when money comes fast when you're young, that could sometimes be a curse. Because when you're hit with money, you think, oh, wow, it's as easy as this. And you're spending money and you're spending foolishly. And he had this girl, and she was like, you know, he had this hot girlfriend at the time. And it was just one of those lives. But he lost everything. And he had nothing. And he lost it all. And he was getting sued here. And he was getting sued there. And he not only battled out of it, he reinvented himself, got rid of that girl, got rid of this high lifestyle. You know, he wound up finding a more beautiful girl, the love of his life. He wound up creating an insurance business, which was, I'm going to say 100 times more stable than any other business. So he created this insurance business, and he not only reinvented himself, he wound up making quadruple what he made back then. And this is one of my best friends now. And it's just an amazing story. I'm like, you know what? The universe conspired in his favor greatly. And mine too, because it kept me alive, you know?
For sure. Absolutely. And it was protecting you, though, as well.
Yes, I feel like the universe protects us and brings us to our best self. But you have to have the mindset and the awareness to find the lessons and to respect the universe by being grateful. And that's my secret number 5. Gratefulness is the vibration of greatness. When you're grateful for what you have, the universe, like a loving parent or anybody, seems to give you more to be grateful for. And it won't give you things because you're not going to be grateful for them. There's no point in the universe gifting you things when you're not going to be grateful for them. Once you're grateful for the little things in life, I feel like the universe gives you more. And that's another crack in this code. That's another hack in this reality. Being grateful. Gratefulness is not, being grateful, just being happy. No. Understanding that, you know what would you rather have, oxygen or a Ferrari? And obviously we would want oxygen, you know? Right. So all the things we need are given to us for free in this reality. So again, you start seeing that this universe is on your side. It's just up to you to understand where it's leading you. And that's the whole game. My secret number 4 is the power of momentum. You take one step in the direction of your passion. Even if it's writing a to-do list, 15 minutes of focused intent a day. 15 minutes, that's it. You put a to-do list together, 15. Maybe you make one phone call the next day. Maybe the next day you put a blueprint together. I don't know. 15 minutes a day of focused intent on some kind of passion. Some people may start off writing a song, and that song may turn into a book. That book may turn into a screenplay. That screenplay may turn into a movie. You don't know what the intent, 15 minutes of focused intent on something that you want to create or something that excites you. And then you, for example, like, how did you get into the med spas? Like,
it's interesting. I've been asked that question quite a bit. And I will say I just love skincare. I loved how I felt, taking care of myself. And then I've just found I was inspired to get into the field. And I just love helping others, right? That's definitely, I have a healing nature. And so I just found this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I meant to do. And it was so organic and easy and seamless. And that's how I feel like when you find your passion, I was definitely led to it. It wasn't my initial career. And I tell my son that what you start with now might not be what you end up doing. And that's okay. So you take all the experiences and knowledge. I worked in business healthcare. I worked in interior design, and just all of that led me to be at a higher level once I was in this field, because all of the business sense, I needed some of that. And I didn't start in skincare. So I've been in the career now 24 years. So it's gone by like...
And time just flies by. That's what happens when you follow your excitement. In my book, I say exactly, you may start off with 15 minutes of focused intent, but then you don't realize that 3 hours go by, 4 hours go by. When I first started writing my book, and it's funny because I was the worst English student in the world. I'm from New York City. I talk the worst too. I have the worst communication skills. I have the worst accent. And I'm the worst writer. English, I failed in high school. And if I could write, anybody could write. Mm-hmm. Now, the first paragraph is the hardest. Then it gets easier. So whenever you follow your excitement, could be difficult early on. But again, we always think we're walking uphill in our passions when we take action. However, it's the reverse. We're actually going downhill. So when you follow your passion, the first step is the most difficult, but then you take the second step. And then it starts like a snowball. Mm-hmm. It starts rolling down the mountain, rolling down the hill, gaining in size, gaining in speed. Before you know it, you're at a level where you're achieving things that you never thought were possible. Why? Because you took action. So taking action is one of the main hacks of this reality. You could sit there and think all you want, make to-do lists, whatever, but taking physical action is the language of this reality. It's how we honor God, in my opinion. We take action in this reality, and then we are led by synchronicities and coincidences. And then once you start following them, you got a cheat code. This is a simulation. Your destiny is your birthright. Your destiny is in your excitements and what you're good at. And you're living it, which is amazing. That's why I like talking to people who are living it. Not only do you make people look beautiful, but you got money coming in. You're mastering the 3D world. You're fulfilling the 5D world. You have a loving family and that's beautiful. And from all of that, you become a way shower, a person others could follow in your footsteps. And even more than teaching people, I don't like teaching people and be like, this is what you got to do. Sometimes it's better to just live a good life and say, yeah, this is what I'm doing. I call that guides of greatness. I had a couple of friends of mine who became the best professional athletes in the world. And I was always like, damn, I got to do better than them. Damn, I got to do better. And they pushed me without them realizing, knowing that they were pushing me. They were like, this kid would come back from the major leagues and I was like, oh, you can't do that. So what I would do is buy properties. I was like, nobody's going to have more than me. Nobody's going to do more than me. But I call these people guides of greatness. And in this reality, I don't think you could mess up. You either succeed and be a guide of greatness, or you fail and become a mirror so others could see you and say, ooh, that kid failed. Let me do opposite. So there's no failure, I see.
I agree. And having gratitude, for me, it's just once you see the blessings, and it's just going to snowball from there. And you're just going to see one blessing after another. And you step back and you're like, okay, I see this work of God and working in my life, and to be able to be in that situation is what we all strive to want to be there, right? It's a journey. It's definitely a journey.
And that's my secret number 6. The journey is the destination. The path itself is the process. Seeing the blessings along the way is the purpose. Understanding and realizing that this reality has a lot more, interesting things to it than we could ever have imagined, because you're picking like your son. Your son's doing the same mannerisms as your father. That is mind-boggling, because when you see that, you're like, oh my God, wow, this is a beautiful, loving universe. It's actually a neutral universe. It allows you to choose. Do you believe that this universe is positive? If you do, you'll see the positive. But if you think that this universe is bad and this world is bad and everything is evil and everything, you'll see a world that's evil. The universe will let you decide. So some people like you will master this reality like nobody else. The people I grew up with, they mastered this reality like nobody else because they didn't even do mantras like, I'm going to succeed today. I'm going to succeed today. I'm going to be the best man. What these people who go on to greatness, their motto is, I will not be denied. That's what they say. There's no other mantras. There's no other self-talk. It's, I will not be denied. When you have the blessings, when you see the miracles, when you understand how this reality is so magical, you automatically have that inner being that I will not be denied because this universe is supporting me. And the journey is the destination. And on this journey, all the beautiful things that get you from point A to point B is the purpose. It's not even the destination. Once you get to a certain destination, you're like, all right, now what? However, everything you went through was the destination, which is beautiful.
I've said to some friends in the past, when you're going through a tumultuous time, you may not realize you come out of the storm and you look back and you're like, how did I get through that? You didn't even know you were in the storm, but you did get through it. And it's having the faith, number one, in all those circumstances. Everything's not flowers and roses every day. We are going to have difficult times and difficult days, but it's in those times, that's when I think we're tested too, is the strength. Like, do I have the strength to power through and get through? And that's, I think, what really spoke to me and to show me you need to stay strong and you just need to trust the process and trust the road and getting to the destination. And I feel like there is never an end. I think we're always evolving, right? We're always progressing. There is no there for me. I'm just going to keep evolving into what it is. What is my next calling? What is it that I'm meant to be doing and focusing on now?
And that's the secret number 7, is when you follow your passion, there's 5 steps. And the first step is you follow your passion. You take it as far as you can take it until you can't take it any further. The second part of that step is you do it to the best of your ability. The third is you do it with no intention. Like, a lot of times we put, like, if you want to be a Broadway singer or something like that, or anything, a dancer, you're like, I must be a Broadway singer. I must be a dancer, on Broadway. And then all of a sudden you go to dancing, it doesn't come out and you feel like you're a failure. However, certain people who love dancing, they stick with it. And they might not go on Broadway, but what they might wind up doing is opening up their own dance studio. And then they wind up teaching, young girls how to dance. And they realize, oh my God, this is more fulfilling and lucrative. And I'm helping all these girls with their, self-worth. And it's a more fulfilling thing. I have a friend of mine. His name is Brian Esposito. Very interesting kid. A kid that works perfectly with my book. And he played AAA baseball, AA baseball, AAA baseball. He made it up to the majors where he played in the major leagues. And he just had this long career. But he didn't quit. While I was going to school, while I was buying businesses, while I was getting master's degrees, while I was killing myself, this kid was playing baseball. He wound up becoming a manager in AA. Then he went to a manager in AAA. Now he's the assistant coach of the San Diego Padres. He will be a head coach. And again, another person I put in my book who's rising up the ranks as I'm writing this. Like, as I'm writing this, I had to keep reformatting it. Like, oh man, this kid this guy won the Stanley Cup. Oh, this kid just, But again, this kid followed his passion. And any passion, whatever that passion is, it doesn't have to look a certain way. And one of the parts about the formula, secret number 7, is that you should leave room open for something even better. And that something better could be more fulfilling, like that dance example I gave you. Now, he didn't play baseball 20 years. He was a coach, this kid, Brian. But look how rewarding it is. Now he helps kids. He helps young men, with their mindset and everything. It's just fulfilling. It's just, you follow your passion, take it as far as you can take it, and you stay positive. And you just, anytime you get negative, there's a belief system in the way. And we would have, when we talk about beliefs, it's its own episode. Beliefs are the next level of mastering this reality, is understanding belief systems, understanding how they work. And that could take a whole episode.
But see, it's just so inspiring, his story. And he just really persevered and just letting the universe really guide him, right? And look where he is now.
Yeah,
he probably
followed his excitement. Now, I coached another kid in basketball. His name is Zach Granite. Again, these stories are in my book because they're interesting, because these stories, I find them to be purposely for me to see these at this level so I could put them in a book so others could see. But his name was Zach Granite. He gets, I coached him in basketball, but he winds up making it in the major leagues in baseball. He's a great athlete and a great kid. You're not going to meet a better kid than this. So while I'm writing my book, he gets drafted by the Minnesota Twins. He winds up having a decent year. They go to the playoffs that year. They lost to the Yankees, but he goes to the playoffs that year. It might have been 2018 or 19, whatever. So I'm like, oh, this is great. Another kid, another horse in the race I have. It's just interesting stories. But he gets hurt, and he can no longer play. And I'm like, damn, why did the universe do that? I'm like, damn, maybe the universe doesn't conspire, at this time. But what did this kid do? He didn't quit. He wound up coming by me, he lives by me. He wound up creating his own baseball clinic, and now he's probably the top baseball expert. All the kids around here go to him. So it's amazing. It's like this kid got hurt for a reason, because he's such a great kid. And I know he's great with kids. And he's now sending kids to the pros en masse.
How incredible is that?
It's just the universe conspires. It's beautiful. And I doubt it sometimes, but it has never, ever proved me wrong. So when he got hurt, I was like, oh, man, that's the worst. Then I found out what he really does. And everybody's like, oh, do you send in your son to Zach? I'm like, Zach? What do you mean? So everybody sends their kids to Zach, where he trains all these kids and lives a more fulfilling life.
I was just going to say fulfilling. It's all about fulfillment, and he's giving back. Really, he's helping those kids excel where, he was led to that. He really was meant to be there.
Like you're meant to be here.
I have a question for you. So what advice would you give to your younger self?
Now, my younger self, this book is basically the exact advice I would give to my younger self. So I wrote this book just in case I have to reincarnate on this planet. At least I picked a cover that would attract me to the book. But really, it would be these mindsets. The mindsets that miracles are the norm. That circumstances don't matter. As long as you control your reactions, you wind up controlling your world. It's almost as if, let's say there's demons that feed off our energy. Once you stop giving them your energy, then they go away. And then your life becomes easier. I would say the universe is always conspiring. Always conspiring. If you're grateful, and you're grateful for what you have, you'll be given more to be grateful for. And that, physical action, taking action on something that excites you and that could fulfill you, that is pretty much what I would tell my younger self. Follow your passions, follow your excitement. This entire book would be what actually I wrote this book just in case I have to come back to earth again. I have this book. That's exactly, This book is what I would say. That's all.
And I love. It's great. It's very inspiring.
What would you say?
Well, if you were to ask me, if it was my last day on earth, what advice would I give?
That's a great question, actually. That's a great prompt.
Well, I would appreciate all the blessings and making sure that I recognize all of those. And I think that's hard for some people when they're in their element or catch themselves in the busyness or, overstimulation, and recognize all of those blessings that came into play, and also realizing why the experiences I went through, what was it trying to teach me?
You have a different inner strength that not many people, you're born with it. It's just something inside of you. So you're meant for this. You're meant to share this message and help people out. And what you do, and even your business and everything, it's just, this is just the beginning for you.
Well,
I think in the end, you're gonna be going.
It's interesting you say that, because I step back and I realize I've always actually been this way. But was I open to the universe? Probably not until my late 20s, maybe even 30s. And I think that's another thing, it's always been there. It's always there. And just listening to it and letting it guide us. I feel very blessed to be in where I'm at and really just have a good perspective, right? Each and every day is a blessing as well. But just being there for each other, really, too, and not having hostility. There's so much hate in our world, and it's heated out there. And so we just have to focus.
I tell people, we used to have the news channel on from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And if you were home at that time to watch the news, you were like, oh my God, the world is falling apart. Now we got cell phones in which We're bombarded with that 24/7. So that's a mind control situation. This world is so beautiful. If they were to get rid of social media and put all the beautiful stuff on there, you'd be like, oh my God, we live in a really beautiful world. And it's a lot of mind control, like you said with the fear, which is very important. In the Bible, it says, do not fear 365 times in the Bible. It says, do not fear. Do not fear. Fear is a frequency. When you're in the state of fear, you're not in a state of creation. When you're in a state of fear, you're in the reptilian brain, the fight or flight, and you can't reach that higher order thinking. So the fear in an esoteric world is how you enslave yourself. However, if you do not fear and you tap into those higher forms of thinking, you learn how to wiggle out of this reality and unenslave yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, financially even. Because even fear and finances, when stocks come down, people are like, oh my God, sell, sell, sell. But people who can control their reactions will be buying while everyone else is selling. Now, that's what I did for many, many years.
And I think God, we're tested. The closer we get to God, the harder the devil will try to pull us away, and trick us and show us this. And that's where we can really go down a rabbit hole, right? It's sad.
And how do you get around that?
I don't have fear now. I mean, I feel good. I know where I'm going. I just don't have the fear because I know God will prevail. That's why.
That vibration, the body could be measured in frequency. For example, but one cell of the human body can store up to 2 or 3 billion lines of computer code. One cell of the human body can store billions of lines of computer. Google runs on 2 billion. The cell of the human body can store 3 billion. We have trillions and trillions of cells. The human being is a supercomputer. Each one of those cells gives off 0.07 kilowatts of electricity. We are electric. And that electric allows us to tap into this frequency that almost creates around us a force field in which everybody around you may be falling apart. But since you created that force field, by not being in that fear state, you become, I'm not going to say superhuman, but you build this indestructible core that can't be affected by outside circumstances. That's why certain people are able to, fly to greatness. Their inner world is so powerful that their outer world has no other choice but to mirror how they feel inside. And that's you right now, which is great because I love when people are examples of my book. It gives me inspiration and motivation.
And keeps you going. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
That's a good question. Maybe I'll leave a link in with you. I'll give it to you. I have like an author page.
Okay.
You know what? Social media. I'm really not on social media that much. Again,
Which is actually good.
Yeah, it is. I don't care if 1 people read my book or a million. But it is probably one of the better books out there, written with the top professional athletes, sports executives, and the #1 channeler on this planet who works with nobody. So the book is doing great. And we're giving all the profits away anyway. We don't care. Again, I just want my kids to have something in case something happens to me. And if I have to reincarnate on this planet, I got this blueprint. So I'll leave a link into you, my author page.
Okay. And the book is available on Amazon.
Yes.
And anywhere else that they can find.
Yeah, Amazon, maybe Barnes, some of the other places too, wherever you find books. I don't even know where. Amazon has such like a monopoly over everything. My goodness.
They do. Well, I appreciate you joining us today. It's been such a blessing and very inspirational. I'm sure it's going to help many others with a different perspective, and hopefully they can get their hands on the book and change the 7 secrets of greatness. Wellness is a daily destination. We are here to support you every step of the way. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to hear all future episodes. Thank you for being a part of our community and for tuning in today.